Good afternoon, everybody. Hey, this is Tony Ross for the 2D Animation Virtual Summit. And if you're just joining us, yeah, this is my allergy voice. So we're going to have a short day today. We are going to play all the videos. The last video for today is Mr. Laren Desjardins, or Desjardins. And we'll be pulling that up at the top of the hour. Or actually right before. And we're going to cut today short so I can get some rest, and we'll close out tomorrow with all of our prizes. And we have Robert Valley's interview tomorrow. If you actually caught Roberto Rodriguez's interview, forgot to warn you ahead of time. Like, I didn't censor anything because it was just having fun and speaking freely. So I don't think I censored any of the interviews this year. So, well, other than Roberto's NDA indiscretion, that was censored out because we're not supposed to talk about stuff. Meanwhile, yeah, I'm probably going to get ready to pull the trigger early on this. I am going to, if you're commenting, I can normally just kind of chime in and add your comments. I'm probably not going to be adding comments in this section. I'm going to be resting while this is actually playing. So, yeah, fun times. So, this is our last video for today, and get to hear some awesome advice. And I think Laren did some really cool portfolio advice. So it's going to be very interesting. All right, so this is Laren Desjardins. Let's pull up this file. Hey, this is Tony Ross for the 2D Animation Virtual Summit, and I am hanging out again with my friend, and I'm gonna do my best to not totally destroy your name, yes. Mr. Laurent Desjardins, or Laren
Desjardins.
Laren Desjardins. And it's I think we were talking about this the last time. It's like how, depending on what region of the country.
Yeah. Well, it's you think of it as Aaron with a nail. So
okay.
Aaron, or another way, laryngitis.
Okay.
But I prefer Aaron with an L. There you go.
Aaron with an L. See, now next time I see you, and I'm going to go, Aaron, Laren. So yeah, man. One, it's a pleasure to have you back, and thank you for joining us. So for those of you who don't know who this dude is, Laren, give us a quick intro of who you is, what you do.
Well, yes, I work in the animation industry. Pretty much, I've done a lot of positions. I've directed animation, character design, storyboard, animation, and produced some things like that. But pretty much, I work in the industry, and I work in various forms within the industry, doing 2D animation mostly. Yes.
Coolness. So I am curious, what are you currently working on, and who are you working with, if you can say?
Yes, currently I'm at Disney Television Animation, working on the Proud Family reboot as a character designer. And so far there have been a few things that have been officially released pertaining to the series. Some new characters have been introduced, and just the word out that they're doing a new Proud Family series. But, as of now, there hasn't been too much official things released. So, and actually there are some things I don't know either. So I can't talk about things, but there are actually, I don't know the details of people are like, oh, when is it coming out? When's the release date? I don't know any of those things.
Okay. Cool. So, I had a couple of questions that I'm curious on, and I've been bugging you about stuff lately. So, are you still, when it comes to character design and stuff and everything you're working in, are you still like hardcore like paper pencil first, or do you just go straight into computer, or you're on an iPad, or what do you normally use?
Well, I use Cintiq Monitor and like Photoshop and pretty much I do that for character design. I do know like Flash and Animate. Don't know Toon Boom yet, but I'm learning it. But when I'm working in those programs, I use a Cintiq Monitor with the program.
Okay.
hmm I want to
Cool.
switch over. Like I've seen a lot of great things on Procreate and things on the iPad. It's just having time to like go out and get the equipment and like play around with it. I'm usually I was going to say unfortunately, but some people are like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Unfortunately, but I was going to say I'm usually working all the time, so I don't have time to like go outside of whatever I'm working on.
Point taken.
Mhm.
And I get that because that was a conversation I was having with another colleague of mine where it's like everyone's just like, "What do you mean, unfortunately?" It's like you really want to dive into more,
Right.
and it's like try to get there. So I'm curious because you know I'm your huckleberry on this. How are you doing on working with Harmony?
I'm still learning. Uh, some of the tutorials that you've done have been quite helpful. Again, I'm a novice at it. I know barely, bare minimum of
Right.
the program. So like I'm learning a little as I go. But it's one of those things that I learn programs when I'm like getting my hands dirty in it and working on it
Right.
and putting the effort and time to really learn it and not forget it. So that's where the whole idea of separating, having a balance between work and going out to learn programs and softwares outside of work,
Right.
so that it's again, to me, learning a new program sometimes for me is like another job. It's investing the time and effort to really learn it right, and read and watch whatever tutorials I need in order to fully grasp the system.
I hear you on that because for me, I have invested, and I'm trying not to be like the way my former students would be. They'd go so heavy into a program and would be afraid to. Not that I'm saying you are. I'm speaking about me. Just be afraid to jump into something else. Like I'm looking at not even 2D stuff, but looking at things like Unreal Engine or like Blender, and I'm going,
Mhm.
man, that looks nice. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to dive in there. And it's just a matter of, yeah, when do I find the time for that? And I try even tricking myself into going, well, if you learn it, you can teach it. And it's like, do I want to add any more? So it's like, got the what is that? The forever student going on. So my first question for you,
Okay.
everyone always talks about, this is the book that changed my
Oh,
life,
excuse me. Sorry.
no worries.
Mhm.
This is the book that changed my life or had a profound effect on me. What animation did that for you?
It's an animation and a book. When I first started getting really into animation, as a kid, I always like loved Saturday morning cartoons and Hanna and Barbera and Warner Brothers shorts and things like that. But I really didn't want to do 2D animation at the time. I was more into like stop motion. So like Ray Harryhausen's, like the old Sinbad movies, and then Phil
Okay.
Tippett when he started doing like Star Wars stuff, just whatever they had like even the California Raisins Benson Studios.
Okay. Cool.
I wanted to do stop motion as a career. But by the time I got to the point to where as I was able to like, oh, I want to go out and venture and get a job, like as I'm getting, I guess when I was getting towards the end of college, that's when CGI started taking over. And I didn't know, I didn't know anything about, CGI. So I just did like a 180 and started like reading more about 2D animation because I did draw cartoons and I
Right.
did illustrations and things. So um, I read like the Illusion of Life book,
Okay.
and that was a transformational book that really got me. And then I started watching films like like for me it's like Akira. You know, that was a profound movie. It's like, man, I want to do that. And then on the opposite end, I wanted to do like real cartoony stuff. So, you know, seeing some of the Disney classics, like Fantasia was a big one for me too. Like when I decided I wanted to do 2D animation, then I started revisiting some of the movies I saw when I was younger. So
Okay.
Fantasia and Pinocchio were like two of my favorite ones. I like Fantasia just because of the extremes and different experimental animation segments and the variety of styles. And then I like Pinocchio. Pinocchio was just like a great story, excellent animation, but I love like the backgrounds, the watercolor backgrounds that were painted. So those two movies were profound. And then the third is kind of a combo is Disney's Jungle Book and 101 Dalmatians. That whole Xerox style animation.
Okay.
When I first started doing 2D animation, that was what we did, you know, because we didn't have budget or money. I guess the same reason why they did it back in the day. We
Right.
didn't have the budget and money to like do hand painted cells, so we would draw, you know, things on pencil. Put the cells on the copy machine. Now I'm talking ancient stuff, but yeah, when
Right.
I first started, we were still painting animated cells and by hand or in Xeroxing the pencils or inking the pencils on cells. So that's it. Yeah, the Illusion of Life book, the Akira pieces, the Akira movie, 101 Dalmatians, Pinocchio, Fantasia, and then all the Warner Brothers shorts. Tex
Okay.
Avery, all those. I would say a combination of all those styles and references got me more interested and pumped for 2D animation.
I'm liking that. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask: do you think the what's happening with the pandemic and everything? Do you think it's had, in your opinion, is a positive effect on our industry or a more negative effect?
Well, I think, well, at least for me, it was positive because I got the job to work on the Proud Family reboot early March, and I was at the studio, physically at the studio for 2 weeks because that next week that's when California shut down, and because of the pandemic, and we all had to work from remotely from our houses or wherever we were. So in that whole process, I worked on the show for over a year plus out of my house. That was a full production. And then just to answer your question, it's like everyone had to do that. The sound, the voice actors,
Right.
all the artists, the production team, everyone had to like do things remotely to make it work, and they did. And a lot of other shows, were still going in production. And I didn't read this article, but there was, I could think, a Variety article or some article that highlighted that in animation. They were like, everything else was shut down, but animation is actually still going.
Right.
So I would say that it didn't have too much of a negative effect. And also, I think it might even change the way that the studios might work with artists. Whereas before, you had to relocate and move. I think this pandemic proved that you don't necessarily have to be physically at a studio or relocate from wherever you live to be a part of the crew. Because we had crew members who were who weren't in California. They were still working on the show, but they were in like other states. So
Okay.
so this I think it was at least from my perspective, it was a positive thing.
I know I'd heard at least a couple of gigs or a couple of productions shifted from live action to animation, like switched over to 2D animation. Like, oh, this season it's going to be animated, and it was just like, wow, because of just everything, them not being able to shoot live stuff for a bit and still wanting to move forward.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and another thing, just on a side note, it was I was talking to like some recruiters, a while back, and they were saying that it was hard for them to like find certain people who they wanted because they were all working. They were like during the pandemic, some of the artists, that studios really wanted to be at their studio, they couldn't get because they were like working. Like this
Oh
one
wow.
this one recruiter's like, man, said that, yeah, all the artists that I want are all working, and I said, wow, that's a good thing, but it's, who would have thought that that would have been something that would happen during a pandemic? Whereas, before the pandemic,
Right.
everyone's like,
It's
yeah,
like
hey, where are the jobs at? Hey, I need work. Yeah.
coolness. So if you could snap your fingers and be working and or directing on your dream animation project, what would it be? And does that target or does that idea change?
Okay. Well, that's a great question. For me, is I have like my own personal projects that I started. Keep putting them on the back burner because I'm working on other projects. But my dream job would be to fulfill those projects. I have a short film, and I have a couple of animated. Well, not a couple, but I have a few animated series ideas. Excuse me, that I want to do, and some of them have been fleshed out. Others are still being developed, and that would be my dream job. To do those things. Some of them I like to like once I kind of wrap up doing what I'm doing at the studios, I'm going to develop more and then possibly do like some crowdfunding to try to get some of them off the ground, and that would be my dream. That would be it right there.
Okay, cool. I'm trying to. I keep asking all of my animation heroes and sheroes that I usually have on the show, and I'm going like, I was like, so when I do have that Mega Million ticket, I feel like, what you need? Let's go.
Yeah, yeah. I actually when was it? Just right a little bit right before I started working at Disney, I actually did. That's what I was really hard to work, not hardly, but working hard on. And I did do like I have like a website and some of the ideas that I want to develop on there. So I did at least start that part out.
I think that's the one fun, exciting thing to hear that, okay, I'm not the only one that's got that thing in the back burner going one day. So, I didn't, there was it, I heard the positive things like I hear, and it wasn't necessarily a 2D thing, but I heard, what was that? Like the Fifth Element, like Besson started writing that I think when he was in high school or something. And it's like over a 15-year span, and then more recently, I don't know if you caught this or not. It's again not 2D, but Jingle Jangle.
Yeah.
And they're talking about, I think it was like 12 years that he was kind of working on, kind of seeing if he can do this. And I'm like, that alone is kind of like, okay, cool. It's not just me. So there was this thing, and it was like this many years in the making, and it's going to be that little. There was an Academy Award winning director, Mr. Laird. It's like, man, that's going to be cool.
So, yeah.
All right, my last question for you, sir, is what do you think is the most consistent thing that you see missing from artists' portfolios?
Some portfolios that I see, not all. I don't want to, make it seem like it's everybody, but I would say a lot of them, a lot of portfolios have. It seems to be like not a lot of range, which could be a bad thing or a good thing. I've said to you this way, like if you have a certain style that you only do and you don't do other styles, that style should be like really good. It's like it should be like super, super polished so that you really stand out and that people will hire you for your ability in that style. But a lot of times, well, at least on TV animation, is that, the more versatile you are, possibly the better you are, the better, hopefully, you might get hired at a studio more, or your options of getting a job at a studio are greater, because you know each show has a different style of animation, a different style of how the show is, and if you can't do that style, then possibly you won't get hired at that studio. But if your portfolio shows that, hey, I'm versatile and I can do this style, I can do that style, I'm able to do this and that. It's just, for me at least, it opened up more opportunities, so that if there was a slow period in animation, then I was doing storyboards. If I wasn't doing storyboards, I was doing character design. If I wasn't doing character design, I was when I was doing Flash, I was doing Flash animation. So that helped me. And again, I'm not saying it to artists to say that this is the end all be all, but I think at least if you are trying to get your foot in the door, the more talent that you show you can do, possibly that will open the door. I've heard recruiters say, the opposite, to say that, hey, if you want to do character design, make sure your portfolio shows character design. And I get it. I understand it. And what I usually do in that regard is I make a portfolio, like I tailor make it specifically for the job I'm applying for, but
Right.
then I also add in the other stuff. So it's like if I'm applying for character design, I will make that character design portfolio to fit. And if I know like what the show is or the style, then I try to put as much stuff close to the style in the portfolio. But then I also throw in the other stuff so that they can see, well, this person can do this style, but then this person actually has all this other stuff that they can do to possibly greater my odds of getting the job,
Right. So that's kind of like tailoring your resume or cover letter, like for every job, but you're pretty much doing that with your portfolio.
Yeah. Every main portfolio submission, if I know what the job is, I will tailor make it specifically for the submission. I have my generic portfolio that's in what thing that's on the website that kind of shows what I do. But if I'm submitting and samples, usually they want to see samples that are close to the style of the show, just so that they can know that you can view the style.
Right.
I know back in the day it was a little bit different. The only thing they wanted to know is that if you knew anatomy, they wanted to see how you did your figure drawings and live drawings and animal drawings. And if you knew how to do that, then that was kind of good enough for them to hire you. But now, studios kind of want to see your cartooning styles. And normally they're looking for something that might fit the style of their show.
Okay. That is interesting and really good to know, because I was waiting for yeah, man, people aren't doing enough anatomy. We're like, no, you're telling me something like, okay, I hadn't actually heard that. That's awesome.
Well, I would add that anatomy can be, see, again, I'm coming from like, it totally changed on me, because when I first started in the industry, that's what the studios were looking for. They were looking for anatomy and figure drawing, and, cartooning and styles was that was kind of like secondary secondary icing on the cake. That
Right.
wasn't a primary thing that they were looking for. They wanted to know if you can draw, and their gauge of knowing if you can draw was how well you drew it from life, how well you drew from life. But now it's totally different. It is about, the styles that you can do and how well you can do them. But again, from my perspective, what kept me employed was the fact that I was versatile. Someone else may have a different story, but from my perspective, that's what I'm thinking. And I would tell people, like, hey, man, how can I get in the door? Because you got to realize, if you have people and I go online and I look at artwork. There are like people who are like really good at a certain style. Like they're like you'll see like a certain style that's popular, and then you have certain artists who really are like super really like it's like no. Out of all the people that do that particular style, these are a group of artists who like really are like at the top
Right.
at doing that style. So, and some of those people work within the industry, and then they have people that work on these shows that do that style. So my thing is that if you are going to have a style that you're going to emulate or do, make sure always gauge myself by, I'm in the industry, but even before I got in the industry, I used to gauge myself by people who work and have the jobs. Kind of like, okay, this person is working in the industry. I'll look at their portfolio and look at their art and say, okay, well, these are the things they had in their portfolio to get them that job, And if I am going to if my portfolio has a particular style, then it has to be just as good and even better. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
Some studios always say that, no, don't do that because, it doesn't. But again, I'm not an absolute person. It's always like, if you're going to do certain things, you make sure that it's like the top of the top of the top. If it's not the top of the top of the top, then you might need to not have your portfolio primarily be just one style. You know what I mean?
Okay. I like that.
And if you do various styles, make sure that the various styles are just as good. When I was in art school, one of my instructors used to tell me, when in doubt, leave out. So if you have doubts about things, either show it to somebody to give you a critique or just don't put it in, because unfortunately, sometimes studios, it's weird sometimes who looks at your stuff. Sometimes people look at your portfolio who can look beyond certain things and understand, oh yeah, that person has the ability. And then you have some people, you have to spell it out to them. Like they don't know because they don't know you as an artist and they don't know your capability. Then they want to make sure that whatever you send them shows everything that you're capable of doing. So when in doubt, leave out, because I don't want, you don't want to put something in there and then they judge you on your worst piece.
Yes.
It's kind of like, oh, this other stuff is awesome, but that one piece there,
Awesome. Well, Aaron, dude, I really appreciate you again taking time, and I really appreciate the answers, because that's making me rethink a couple of things. And I get that you're not the end all be all, but this is like the perspective you gave on portfolio is like, oh, okay, that's a very good point. Not that I'm trying to work in the industry, but even I have to look at things like even on what I do a lot of training. I'm like, I need to make sure everything is on that same level, and I can switch when I need to.
Well, it's kind of like, I'll put it to you this way. This is one thing that I found out when I got in the industry, and I'm saying this, but I'm not saying this for people to put their work down a grade. Sometimes you might work on a show that it's a C-level work is good enough for them,
Right.
and that's what shocked me. It's kind of like you may be on a show, whereas, and when I'm saying C-level, I'm not saying that the show is crappy. I'm just saying the requirements to be on it. Maybe the cartooning style is super simple,
Right.
and maybe I'll say it like that, not C-level, but maybe it's just maybe there's not a whole lot involved. So that means you can be somebody that can be super awesome at anatomy and do all this great detailed type work, but then someone else who doesn't do that type of work, you guys are you might still get the same position, or the other person. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that was one thing that I found out when I got it. So, oh, okay, well, sometimes a studio just may have a range. It's kind of like, hey, if you're at this level, then you can get in. You're good enough to work on our project. And even if you're beyond that level, that's kind of like a plus or an icing on the cake. So it's kind of like, well, this is what we're looking for, just someone who can do this simple style. But then if you come in there and you have like other things to offer, then some studios may say, oh, wow, this is a plus. It's like we can do more. but those are just things that I discovered, getting into the industry. It's kind of like, because before I thought, I thought my portfolio had to look like, like it's like,
right.
It's a high, it's good to reach high. I'm not saying don't reach high, but it was almost like, I thought it had to be like, just like what you see in the movies, which,
right.
It should, but some studios may be like, no, because, we're only going to hire you to do this. Someone else is,
yes,
someone else is going to color it. Someone else is going to tighten up your lines. It's a production flow. So, but if you can, I'll just put it to you this way, because I don't want to confuse people. The more you can do, the better, because it worked for me. But in that, don't let, if you're not good at a particular thing, don't let it discourage you, because it's a whole team working together to make one product, so that even though your coloring style may not be just as great as your drawing style still might be good enough to get you in,
Yes.
Yeah. If it makes sense. And I say it this way because sometimes I might say it to somebody and they may take it the wrong way and interpret it as, oh, I can just, slack off, or no, your stuff should be top notch. And I'm just kind of saying, depending on where you're submitting, certain studios have different things that they're particularly looking for.
Right.
And the cool thing is if you know, because if you know, then that's when I can tailor make things so that I'm showing them exactly what they're looking for. The bad thing is if, there's job postings and they don't explain or let you know what the show is or the style, and you're kind of doing blind submissions. That's when it becomes like, oh man, but I'll start babbling. But again, I just wanted to kind of mention that because I don't want artists to get discouraged. And then I also don't want artists to slack off. It's kind of like a fine line.
Right.
Each studio is different. Each studio looks for different things. But for me, if I was looking at it, it's always drawing, it's always your ability to draw, your ideas, how you think, how you interpret, your style, as far as not drawing style, but things you come up with from the imagination, all those things can lend to the show, depending on what the show is. And hopefully that answers the question.
It does.
I'm kind of, because as I'm answering it, I'm thinking about experiences that I've had,
right,
and things. I'm like, oh, okay, oh man, because sometimes I used to like worry myself, thinking that, oh man, it's what I have in there is not good enough. But then I'll get a call back, and I'm like, okay, and they're like, oh, we like this, and then I'm thinking, oh, okay, all this other stuff that I was worried about, they're not even looking at that. They're looking at this particular thing because that's the position they want to hire me for. It's like, okay, if you don't do backgrounds as well as you do characters, then make sure that your characters are good and apply for character design. But yeah, I'm babbling, but yeah, that was one of the things that kind of like I said, oh, okay, I kind of understand, but some studios don't do that either. But
Loving that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you again for hanging out with us.
And thank you, Tony.
Yeah.
My allergies are we have it's autumn or not autumn, but getting close to winter, but the leaves are falling.
Yes.
I'm just over here. My nose is a little stuffy and I'm sneezing.
Oh, I hear you. I've got to go find my allergy pills as it is. That's the other thing I hate about the pandemic. You can't have allergies right now because everybody, you sneeze and people are like, what you doing? You all right over there? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. All right. This has been Tony Ross for the 2D Animation Virtual Summit. It's Mr. Laren. And I'm going to still mess up. Why am I messing up your name? Desjardins?
Last name is, and this is simple. It's like D-Jar-Net, like a letter D, a glass jar, and a net. And Aaron with an L. At one time, this is super early on. I can't even find the design. That was I had a logo. That was my logo was a jar with a D on it inside of a net.
Oh man. Okay.
It was campy, but it people knew what it meant.
You're gonna have to remake that, dude.
Yeah, that was like in my college years.
Okay. Just last year, huh?
Oh yeah.
Man, it's been real. And thank you again for joining us. And like I said, we're going to be looking forward to having you get those little dream projects up and going. So
yeah, that's that I'm pushing on that. Once I'm kind of done and have some time, or even if I don't have time, it's kind of like I have to make the time and make more.
Coolness. All right. Going to sign off with you. Have a good one, man. I appreciate you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Hey, this is Tony Ross for the 2D Animation Virtual Summit. And again, sorry, we're cutting it short today because I am very much under the weather. We'll be picking up tomorrow at 10 a.m. for our closing day. Giving away a ton of prizes. We have Ollie Putland, Robert Valley, and I'm trying to remember who else. I'm forgetting people. But yeah, there'll be more. Well, I'll send out an email because I am not thinking clearly right now. So thanks for joining us. And again, feel free to share the links around. We'll be picking up again tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So have a good one.